of course, sounds really good, having the people's input into the budget. But I mean, at this stage, anyway, that's not for me to say. We have someone who Ladi had, I think, last week to discuss the budget, so we want him to follow up on that conversation. Joining us right here in the studio, the Managing Director of Timeline Consult Limited, Mr. Shuaib Idris. Thank you so much, sir, for granting us your time again.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, I guess since you started the budget conversation, let's stay with you on it. So, this is the first time, I don't know, this is the first time we're having a town hall meeting to get the people's input for an appropriation bill. But I'm thinking the budget seems to have gone through a whole lot of stages. Now, is this going to be relevant?
Well, number one, this is not the first time. There were instances, if I can remember, during the tenure of late Chuba Okadigbo presidency of the Senate, he did, try to do something similar. So this is not the first time. Is it relevant? I think it is. We have 2-3 arms of government, of course, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Now, the final say, as far as spending is concerned, is with the National Assembly. The executive can, indeed, should propose, legislation or bills on spending, and the National Assembly can think with whatever the executive may have, may have presented to them. So if the National Assembly, under the leadership of Okpabio and Abbas Tajuddin, decide to have a town hall meeting, it should be welcome. However, our concern is the timing. We want to achieve so much within such a short period of time. We want to continue the December or January to December budget cycle. The budget was presented last days of November. You have just 1 month within which the National Assembly members and their technocrats or the technical assistant to them to distill the budget, and you also want to have the populace or the Nigerian citizens to also have input. The timing is too short.
Yeah, which is why I asked if this is going to be relevant, because when you have meetings like this and people come out to make contribution and share their opinion and perspective, and then they don't see it reflecting in the numbers. I mean, we already have the numbers. We already have the benchmarks. We already have the issue of debt and, the deficit and all of that. Do we expect that the lawmakers will now wake up and go back and add these into, and then, of course, like you said, we do have a time bound that we're supposed to have the budget approved so that implementation can start?
You see, fundamentally, a budget has 2-3, different categories or sections. Number one, the assumptions. So if the input from the general public comes out that, say, let's take just 1 or 2 aspects of the assumptions underlining the 2024 budget to be tinkered with, let's say, the oil price benchmark. Generally, economics and analysts, everyone feels strongly that $77.9 per barrel as assumption, price of the crude oil is a bit on the high side. The National Assembly can say, oh, we've had the discussions and the input from people, therefore, executive, we don't agree with you to put a benchmark of $77.9 per barrel. We are bringing it down to, say, $75. That is something that can be done. And of course, the exchange rate, $750 is a bit on the high side. Under the purchasing power parity pricing of foreign currencies, we don't see the Naira valuation at 750 Naira to a dollar. Maybe somewhere around 600, 650, maximum 700. Then the gap between the expenditure and the revenue, what we call the deficit. Again, the National Assembly can do something. The actual spendings can just be appropriated or adjusted based on certain changes that can be, introduced in the assumptions.
And I guess another area that Nigerians would really, they've been talking about, maybe not at the town hall, but I mean conversations everywhere on Twitter and, other social media platforms, is the cost of governance. I mean, I know that perhaps the federal government has cleared the air about the delegation at the COP28, but I memean, we have not heard the last of the 15 billion that seems to be proposed for the vice president's resident, which the FCT minister, I mean, and all this is coming from a budget that we will have to borrow about 8 trillion naira, and we'll take 15 out of that for the vice president's residence at a time when Nigerians are looking for food.
Honestly, if there is any area where the citizens of Nigeria should give input on this budget, is this particular subject matter you've just asked, the cost of governance. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria allows Mr. President to pick at least a minister from each state. That means we should have not more than 36 ministers, or rather minimum of 36 ministers. Why should President Bola Ahmed Tinubu give us 48 ministers at a time when we have lean resources? Why should we have the number of technical assistants, special advisors that he's appointing just to help him run the system, when we already have civil servants? We have permanent secretaries in each ministry. There are even ministries that have 2, 3, or even more permanent secretaries in one ministry. Why can't we, for example, retreat and take a second look at the cost of governance with a view to shrinking the amount of money we are spending in order to run the system, so that there will be, even if not left over to give us dividend of democracy, let there be left over that we can repay our debt. We have recurrent expenditure of about 9.7 trillion naira. When you juxtapose that with the 9 trillion naira that we will be using to pay for debt, to service our debts and repay part of the debts, as well as the so-called 8.7 trillion naira that was budgeted for capital expenditure, you ask yourself, 9 plus 9 is 18 versus 8.7 that will be used for capital expenditure. Where are we heading to? The earlier we tell ourselves the bitter truth that this country is not a rich country. This country is a less developed country, is a developing economy, and we are, by any standard, we are poor. When you look at the per capita income, and you look at the cost of living, and you look at the propensity of poverty that is so endemic in this country is a poor country, and yet we are continuing to live as if it is business as usual. And it is indeed business unusual.
I guess a guest on our sister program, Politics Today, Senator Juma Ibrahim, will not agree with you, because he's confident that, I mean, we're doing good and we can keep on borrowing conveniently to fund the economy.
Yes, we can borrow. I'm a banker, and therefore I'm not anathemic to borrowing. But borrowing to do what? Do you borrow to fund consumption, or you borrow to invest and fund capital project? We are borrowing to fund ostentatious living. This is dangerous. And indeed, it's even an abomination to borrow to fund the recurrent expenditure. We have a policy and we have a situation where the Federal Republic of Nigeria, even the last Minister of Finance, was reputed to have said we were borrowing to pay salaries. 98% of our revenues are being spent to service debts. So if you get revenue, 98% of it to service debt, so how do you, spend on salaries and other recurrent expenditure?
Obviously,
so you continue to borrow. So is that what the distinguished senator will tell us to do? I mean, it's dangerous. We will reach a point where we will be declared bankrupt, and the creditors will refuse to give us loans any longer, and we will have nowhere to go except if we want to ask the central bank to do what they have been doing in the past, just waste and spend the money, and then inflation will go haywire.
Well, it seems like a circle, but I mean, it's our job to bring these issues to the limelight. While we are happy about the town hall, but I mean, it would be nice for the people to see government actually implement something they are asking for. I remember when they were talking about the INEC recs, and then they showed pictures and videos of some recs that are party members, active party members, and even as we speak, those people are still in INEC, you know, so it doesn't seem like the government actually, even if they listen, I don't know if they hear.
It's fairly dangerous. And the worst situation is the National Assembly will take our hard-earned money to conduct this town hall. It becomes a jamboree if inputs from this town hall are not going to be reflected in the budget. Then it becomes, you know, really dangerous. And indeed, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu needs to be listening. Sometimes when a yellow flag is raised on any individual, the best is retreat. We have 220 million Nigerians. There is no state that will be having only one credible candidate. Every state would have had multiple of candidates that he can pick, male or female. So if a yellow flag is raised on someone, for heaven's sake, the president should withdraw and say, this is not politics. This is trying to build a credible system that we will all be happy with.
After all, they say democracy is a government by the people, for the people.
For the people. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for your time, Mr. Schreib, for joining us on this conversation. And as I said, well, we'll keep talking about it. And hope that one day we will see the talk become a work. You know,
I pray so. Thank you for having me.
Thank you too.